Welcome to the Pencil Bob channel. I hope you enjoy my stories. Please like and subscribe, and hit that notification icon so you never miss out. Now on with the stories.
I'm feeling like I'm living in some kind of bizarre HOA Twilight zone. Let me take you back to where it all began. It was August last year when my husband and I thought we'd struck gold. We found this cute 1940s bungalow in Portland, Oregon. It was sandwiched between two sets of 1970s townhomes, which should have been our first clue that things weren't quite normal. But we were starry-eyed and optimistic, We did our due diligence, or so we thought. We asked all the right questions, got all the paperwork, checked out the HOA's history. They told us the setup had been working smoothly for over 20 years. If only we'd known what working smoothly actually meant in their world. Our HOA fees were set at $360 a month, covering water, sewage, and garbage. The townhome folks only paid $180. Should have seen that red flag waving, right? But no, we were too busy imagining our perfect little life in our perfect little house. We hadn't even finished unpacking when the first bomb dropped. The city sent us a complaint letter about the landscaping. Apparently, our new neighbors had been fed up with the overgrowth for ages and decided to welcome us by filing a complaint. Nothing says, "Howdy, neighbor," like the threat of a $600 daily fine, right? The HOA's solution? Charge us $600 for a hack job that made the place look even worse. When I asked when the hedges were last trimmed, they casually mentioned it had been 15 years. 15 years, and get this. One of the owners had the nerve to tell me this was a low-maintenance property. Yeah, if by low maintenance you mean neglected to the point of city intervention. Fast forward a year, and I've become the unofficial groundskeeper of this dump. I've picked up enough trash to fill a small landfill, broken windows, drug paraphernalia, you name it. I even shelled out $900 of my own money to haul away a truckload of junk. And the thanks I get? A passive-aggressive email about parking my car in my own damn driveway. So here we are, on the brink of an emergency meeting that I'm pretty sure is just going to be an excuse for them to gang up on us about our car. Because clearly, that's the pressing issue here, not the fact that our property looks like a set from a post-apocalyptic movie. I've spent the last few days trying to rally the other homeowners. One neighbor pulled me aside and said he and his wife would stand with us against the treasurer and president. It's nice to know we're not alone, but it's also infuriating that this has been going on for 11 years and nobody's done anything about it. The day of the meeting arrived, and let me tell you, it was a shit show from start to finish. We gathered in the common area, which I'd cleaned up myself, of course. The president called the meeting to order, and I could already see the smug look on his face. "We're here to discuss some concerns that have been raised," he started, eyeing me and my husband. "Primarily, the issue of unauthorized parking in driveways." I couldn't believe it. I actually laughed out loud. "Are you kidding me?" I said. "That's what this emergency meeting is about? Not the fact that our property is a mess. Not the fact that we're one complaint away from hefty city fines?" The treasurer, Mr. Sunshine himself, piped up. "We have rules for a reason," he sneered. "If we let one person break them, soon everyone will be parking wherever they want." That's when I lost it. I stood up, my hands shaking with anger. "Let me get this straight," I said, my voice rising. "I've spent the last year cleaning up after all of you. I've picked up drug paraphernalia, hauled away junk, mowed the overgrown grass that was a fire hazard. I've spent my own money to keep this place from looking like a total dump. And your concern is that I parked my car in my own driveway?" The room went silent for a moment. Then, to my surprise, our neighbor stood up. "She's right," he said. "This has gone on long enough. We can't keep ignoring the real problems here." For a moment, I felt a glimmer of hope. Maybe, just maybe, things were about to change. But then the president cleared his throat. "While we appreciate your enthusiasm," he said, his tone making it clear he appreciated nothing of the sort, "we have procedures in place for a reason. If you have concerns about maintenance, you need to submit them in writing to the board." "Are you serious?" I exploded. "I've been emailing you for months. I've brought up these issues at every opportunity." Now, the treasurer chimed in, his voice dripping with condescension. "There's no need to get emotional. We're all adults here." That's when I knew nothing was going to change. These people were so set in their ways, so comfortable in their dysfunction, that they couldn't even see how ridiculous they were being. The meeting ended with nothing resolved. The president promised to look into the maintenance issues, but I knew that was just lip service. As for our car, we were told in no uncertain terms that if we parked in the driveway again, we'd be fined. As we left the meeting, our neighbor who had spoken up approached us. "I'm sorry," he said, looking defeated. I really thought if enough of us spoke up things might change. Why has everyone put up with this for so long? I asked him. He shrugged. It's easier to move than to fight, I guess. But now I'm not so sure. That night my husband and I had a long, hard talk. We loved our house, but was it worth all this stress? Was it worth feeling like we were constantly walking on eggshells in our own home? We decided to start looking for a new place. It broke my heart, but I couldn't see any other way out. The thought of spending years fighting these battles of pouring more money into a property that the HOA seemed determined to run into the ground was just too much. As I sit here writing this cautionary tale, I can't help but feel a mix of anger and sadness. Anger at the HOA for their incompetence and stubbornness. Sadness at the thought of leaving a home we'd hoped to live in for years. If you're reading this and considering buying a property with an HOA, please do more than just read the bylaws. Talk to the neighbors. Look at how the property is maintained. And if something feels off, trust your gut. We thought we'd found our dream home. Instead, we found a nightmare wrapped in a cute 1940s bungalow package. Now we're facing the prospect of selling a house we've barely lived in, all because of an HOA that's more concerned with where we park than whether our property is safe and well maintained. So here's to new beginnings, and to hoping that wherever we end up next, it's HOA free. Because let me tell you, after this experience, I'd rather deal with the city directly than ever be part of an HOA again. Wish us luck as we start our house hunt again. And if you're in Portland and see a cute bungalow for sale sandwiched between some townhomes, maybe think twice before making an offer. Trust me, it's not worth the headache. Look into finding an attorney that deals with homeowners association to consult with. Read your documents and bylaws and highlight everything the HOA president is doing wrong to discuss with the attorney. There should be language that says you can enforce the restrictions yourself and make either the board or other homeowners comply. If there is nothing in the covenants about driveway parking, they don't have a leg to stand on. Check your CC&Rs again to be safe. Then, get elected to the board. If the HOA is just to pool trash sewer fees, then WTF does it exist for in the first place? If the common areas aren't being taken care of, then the entirety of that HOA is pointless. You shouldn't have had to clean all that up. You should get a full copy of the financials. They are required to provide that to you as an owner, and go forensic accountant, so you can sic the attack librarians, lawyers on them. I'm not sure that you have an HOA problem, as much as you seem to have a landlord for the low-rent townhomes problem being on the board. His interests are going to be to keep things cheap and keep his rent money flowing. That conflicts with basically everything. An HOA for that small number of houses is really weird, but the vibe I get from your situation is that you need to get this landlord guy off the board ASAP. His interests will not align with yours, ever. I never thought I'd find myself in the middle of a suburban war zone, but here I am. It all started back in 2019 when I bought my dream home. Let me tell you, it was perfect, or so I thought. Built in the mid-90s, my house was part of a small development of just 30 homes. The best part, no HOA, yeah, you heard that right. No nosy neighbors telling me what color I could paint my fence or how high my grass could grow. It was heaven. Our little slice of paradise backed right up to a state forest. I'm talking huge backyards that just melted into the woods. It was like having our own private nature reserve. We even had this separate road that no one else could use. It was our secret entrance to tranquility. Now, don't get me wrong, we weren't completely isolated. There was this newer neighborhood nearby, built in the early 2000s. About 105 homes, all neat and tidy under the watchful eye of their HOA and some fancy management company. We didn't have much to do with them, except for this little path that ran through old Mr. Johnson's yard. The HOA folks used it to get to the forest trails. It wasn't a big deal, really. Live and let live, right? But then, last year, everything went to hell in a handbasket. I came home one day to find this packet in my mailbox. "Welcome to the HOA," it said. I thought it was a joke at first. I mean, we'd never been part of an HOA, why would we suddenly be in one now? I called the number on the packet, thinking I'd clear things up quickly. Boy, was I wrong. The lady on the phone insisted we were part of their HOA now. Apparently, some new hotshots had taken over and decided our little neighborhood was part of their kingdom now. Can you believe the nerve? I talked to my neighbors and we were all on the same page. We told them to take a hike. But these HOA bullies didn't back down. They started sending us threatening letters talking about fines and legal action. It was like living in some kind of twisted dictatorship. Luckily for us, my next-door neighbor Tom is this hotshot real estate attorney. I'm talking big leagues here. When he got wind of what was happening, he went on the warpath. It was beautiful to watch. He sent cease and desist letters, threatened countersuit, the whole 9 yards. It was like watching David take on Goliath, except David had a law degree and a mean streak a mile wide. For a while it looked like things might calm down. The HOA backed off, at least from trying to force us to join, but the damage was done. The whole neighborhood was on edge. We were waiting for the other shoe to drop, and drop it did. Remember that path I mentioned earlier, the one that ran through old Mr. Johnson's yard? Well, his son decided he'd had enough of the HOA folks traipsing through his dad's property. One weekend he had a company come in and build this massive fence right across the path. It was like the Berlin Wall of suburbia. You should have seen the HOA people when they realized what had happened. They were livid. I'm talking red-faced, steam coming out of their ears, angry. They tried to fight it, of course, sent more threatening letters, tried to claim some kind of easement rights. But Mr. Johnson's son stood his ground. Children need to learn life lessons, he told me with a smirk when I asked him about it. The HOA threatened legal action, but it turns out they didn't have a leg to stand on. They never filed an actual lawsuit. In the end, they had to back down. Now, if they want to access the forest, they have to drive 3 miles to use a public entrance. It's not the end of the world, but boy are they mad about it. Word spread fast about what happened. Suddenly, our quiet little corner of the world was the talk of the town. And let me tell you, it wasn't good news for the HOA neighborhood. Property values started to drop like rocks. I heard through the grapevine that some houses were selling for 20% less than they were just a few months ago. People didn't want to live in a place with such a contentious HOA. It's not just about the forest access, though that's a big part of it. It's about the attitude, the entitlement. These HOA board members, mostly boomers, thought they could just waltz in and take over our neighborhood. They thought they could bully us into submission. Well, they learned the hard way that's not how things work around here. The older folks in our neighborhood, the ones from the silent generation like Mr. Johnson, have been amazing through all of this. They've got this quiet strength about them. They don't make a fuss, but they stand their ground. They try to teach real lessons, to impart wisdom. It's a stark contrast to the boomers running the HOA. These are people who had everything handed to them on a silver platter. Their parents worked hard to give them better lives, to build ladders for them to climb. And what did they do? They pulled those ladders up behind them, and then had the gall to call younger generations lazy for not being able to climb. So here we are months later, and the tension is still thick enough to cut with a knife. The HOA neighborhood is in shambles. Property values are in the toilet. I heard some residents are trying to dissolve the HOA altogether, but the board is fighting tooth and nail to keep control. Meanwhile, our little non-HOA neighborhood is doing just fine. We're closer than ever, united by our shared battle against the HOA bullies. We have block parties now, swap stories about the latest HOA drama. It's like we're the rebels, and they're the evil empire. But you know what? It's exhausting. The constant vigilance, always wondering what the HOA will try next. Will they find some loophole to force us in? Will they try to buy up houses in our neighborhood to gain control? It's like living in a state of perpetual war. I bought this house thinking I was living the dream, and in many ways I still am. I love my home, my neighbors, the forest at my back door. But this whole HOA nightmare has cast a shadow over everything. It's a constant reminder of how fragile our peace can be, how quickly things can change. I find myself getting angry sometimes, thinking about the entitlement of these HOA board members. Who do they think they are? What gives them the right to try and control our lives? It's not just about paint colors and lawn height anymore. It's about freedom, about the right to live our lives the way we choose. And you know what really gets me? The helplessness. Even though we won this battle, I can't shake the feeling that it's not over, that they'll find some way to come after us again. It's like living with this constant low-level anxiety, always waiting for the other shoe to drop. In the end, I suppose we came out on top. We kept our independence, kept our forest access. The HOA lost big time, their reputation, their property values, their easy access to the trails. But it doesn't feel like a victory. It feels like we're all losers in this ridiculous suburban war. I find myself longing for the days when neighbors were just neighbors, when we could wave across the fence without wondering if someone was plotting to take over our property, when the biggest drama was who would host the next barbecue. But those days are gone now. We've all changed. We're more suspicious, more guarded. Even as we celebrate our win, there's a bitterness to it. Because we know the peace we're enjoying is fragile, that it could all change in an instant if the HOA decides to try again. So here I am, living in my dream home that's become a bit of a nightmare. Don't get me wrong, I'm grateful for what we have, but I can't help but wonder, at what cost and how long will it last? I guess only time will tell. For now, I'll enjoy my HOA-free life, my access to the forest, and the company of my neighbors who stood strong in the face of bullying. But I'll always be looking over my shoulder, waiting for the next battle in this suburban war. Because if there's one thing I've learned, it's that when it comes to HOAs, the war is never really over. One of those entitled HOA people 100% said that exact phrase to him, and he spent his entire life energy to be able to throw that shit back in their face. Whatever that fence and lawyer cost was all worth it to be able to do that. When an HOA tried to force a homeowner in Las Vegas who was not in the HOA to pay for it, and tried to take his house, they ended up losing in court twice, and had to pay out $188,000 in damages and legal fees. Over a many-year battle, they learned a lesson there. Of course, HOA board members are rarely less than 60 years old, so calling them children is a stretch. It was my second time going this, though. Before I moved out there, I lived in an old farmhouse. Someone working an early shift would park at the end of my lane, then get picked up for his own work. It was a working farm, so it blocked machines trying to get out an already tight laneway. I'd leave notes and they'd be chucked on the ground and he's back the next day. Police not interested, civil matter. So I got a mate to come stay up with me. Around 4 a.m. here he comes. Few minutes later a van pulls up to pick him up. So down we go with a couple of jacks and muscle the car so it's blocking one lane of the road. It was clear enough you could see it and there was enough room to pass, it just made the traffic stop. Around 8 a.m. police come knocking telling me to move it. Sorry officers, it's not mine nor anyone I knows. They got a lorry to come pick it up and wanted to leave it on my lane. No thanks officers, I need access. They took it away. I never seen him or his car again.
I would like to thank you for watching the video to the end. To encourage us to make more videos, please like, subscribe, comment, as well as share. Check out this other video if you haven't already.